You ever notice how the lies that hurt most don't come wrapped in shouting or drama? They come soft, casual, wrapped in a smile and sealed with a kiss. Brooke had always been good at that. She didn't lie with big stories. She lied with the absence of detail, with silence, with the way she avoided looking you in the eye just long enough to make you question yourself. That's what made the Bachelorette weekend feel off before she'd even packed a bag. "Amanda's getting married," she'd said, tossing the words out like they meant nothing. "We're all going up to her dad's lake house for the weekend. No guys, just the girls. Wine, probably too much wine. I'm turning off my phone to detox, so don't panic if I go dark." She even threw in a playful smile like she was doing me a favor by warning me ahead of time. But here's the thing. Brooke never turned off her phone. Ever. Not when she flew cross-country to visit her family. Not during yoga retreats. Not even during couples therapy when the counselor literally asked us both to unplug and reconnect. She kept it on during funerals. During fights. She kept it on when we'd sit on the couch in silence, 2 feet apart, her thumb scrolling while my words went unheard. So when she said she was turning it off, that wasn't peace. That was erasure. And if I'm being honest, a part of me knew even then. I didn't want to know, but I did. I'd spent months chalking things up to stress, to work, to coincidence. I told myself she was tired, not distant. Busy, not secretive. But eventually, you can't ignore the growing distance in your own home. The toothpaste that only gets squeezed from one end. The laundry that stops mixing. The 2 toothbrushes never drying at the same time. So yeah, I made a plan. I found out through one of her friend's Instagram stories that the brunch was set for Sunday morning. A little glassfront cafe downtown. Farm to table, lots of white marble, the kind of place where everyone takes photos of their eggs. I knew it would be crowded. That's what made it perfect. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want tears or rage or gaslighting. I just wanted truth. Clean and sharp. So I had the divorce papers delivered there, right to her table. I arrived early. Sat in my car across the street in one of those tight parallel spots you've got to squeeze into just right. It was gray outside, typical for the city in early spring. Mist on the windows. Coffee in the cup holder. My nerves. A quiet hum beneath the surface. I watched through the cafe's glass walls as she laughed with her friends. 9:30 a.m. Sharp. She looked perfect. That bothered me more than I expected. Her makeup was flawless, like she'd just stepped out of a salon. Hair curled, skin glowing. The kind of glow that doesn't come from a hungover cabin morning. Her clothes were pressed, not a wrinkle in sight. Designer blouse, sleek skirt, heels, for a lakeside hangover brunch. And her phone, her supposedly off for the weekend phone, was on the table, face up and glowing. She picked it up multiple times, smiled at it, showed it to her friends. I watched her swipe, scroll, show something funny. But when she turned the screen toward her friends for a laugh, I noticed something. There were no missed calls, no texts waiting, no sign the phone had ever been off. I know how iPhones work. I know how they display missed calls or notifications after being off. Hers looked freshly used, active, as if I didn't exist in her digital world. Then the courier arrived. A young guy in a dark jacket, clean-cut, professional. He stepped into the cafe and made a beeline for her table, holding the envelope with both hands like it was sacred. Brooke turned just as he reached her, her smile still frozen in mid-conversation. He handed her the envelope. I watched her blink. That blink, just 1 second, was the most honest reaction I'd seen from her in months. Then, just as quickly, she laughed. She laughed, like it was a joke, like someone had dared her to do it. She waved it around like it was no big deal, passed it off to Amanda or whoever was next to her, and kept talking. The group buzzed around her. Some leaned in, curious. Others looked awkward. Brooke? She didn't miss a beat. And that was the giveaway. If it had really surprised her, if the envelope had been a true shock, it would have broken her composure. But she didn't panic. She didn't get defensive. She didn't look confused. She performed. She leaned into the character she'd been practicing for months. And me? I just sat in my car and watched it all unfold. I think what hit hardest wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the ease of it, the comfort, the way she adapted, like she'd always known this moment was coming. Like she'd already imagined how she'd spin it if her little world cracked open. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. Her body language said enough. That casual lean back in her chair. The way she rolled her eyes playfully and waved the envelope off like a prank. The mock surprise. She wasn't caught. She was ready. I looked down at my phone, flipped through our last text exchange. Me. Let me know when you get there safe. Her. We'll do yellow heart. That was 2 nights ago. I never got a follow-up. I wanted to believe the silence meant she was just relaxing. That maybe she was journaling, or doing yoga on the dock, or drinking coffee with old friends. I told myself she needed space and I should respect that. That I was being overdramatic. But watching her now, laughing through a lie so seamless it could have passed for truth. I knew I hadn't been paranoid. I'd been patient. Too patient. It wasn't the brunch that revealed the truth. It wasn't the makeup or the glowing phone or even the way she dismissed the documents with a smirk. It was the way she never flinched. She had rehearsed this. She had worn this betrayal like a second skin. And now that the mask was off, I saw her clearly. Not the woman I married. The one who had already left long before she packed a bag. And the silence she gifted me all weekend? That wasn't disconnection. That was goodbye. After the brunch, I didn't go home right away. I drove around for a while with no destination in mind. Just drifting through the streets like a ghost wearing my own skin. I couldn't feel my hands on the wheel. Everything looked familiar but distant. Like my world had shifted half an inch to the left and nothing lined up anymore. I ended up pulling into a grocery store parking lot. The kind that always smells faintly like rotisserie chicken and wet concrete. I sat there with the engine off, watching people come and go with their bags of bread, eggs, normalcy. And I just sat, staring out the windshield. I realized how long I'd been pretending not to notice the signs. They weren't big. They never are. It started with a smell. Something small and stupid like that. One night, she came home late, claiming she'd met up with an old friend from college. I hugged her as she walked through the door. Not out of suspicion, just because I missed her. That's when I smelled it. Cologne. Not mine. Not even subtle. Something sharp and unfamiliar. I didn't say anything at the time. I assumed it came from a crowded bar or a hug from a friend. But now I know. That wasn't an accident. That was residue. Another time, she wore a new perfume. I complimented her on it, genuinely. You smell amazing, I'd said, kissing the side of her neck. Is that new? She nodded, said it was a free sample. I didn't think much of it. Just another detail I filed away in the corner of my mind. The drawer labeled, random stuff she likes. But that perfume only came out on certain nights. The ones she called me nights. Spa visits. Book clubs. Art shows with friends I'd never met. Self-care. That's what she called it. At the time, I believed her. Because why wouldn't I? But looking back, it's like I'm watching my own life through glass, screaming at myself to pay attention, to wake up, while the me in the past keeps smiling and nodding. She got careful with her phone too. That one crept in gradually. First, it was her flipping it over when we watched TV. Then it was her taking calls on the balcony, even in the cold. Once, she locked it in the bathroom while she showered. Said she was listening to a podcast. What kind of podcast needs a passcode? I remember asking, who were you texting? And her snapping, can't I have a private life without being interrogated? That was months ago. I remember how that single moment flipped the energy in the house like a switch. I stopped asking questions after that. She made sure of it. And there were the absences. Subtle but steady. Dinners she forgot. Errands she took too long to run. Appointments that never showed up on our shared calendar. She once said she was going to Target, then came home 3 hours later with one bag and damp hair. I had asked, did you get caught in the rain? She smiled. Yeah, weird freak storm. Sorry I didn't text. My phone died. I laughed with her then. God, I laughed. It wasn't until this morning, watching her brunch performance with that glowing screen in hand, that I realized the absurdity of that answer. Her phone? Dying? She carried a backup charger in her purse like it was a religion. She never ran out of battery. She never lost signal. She never missed a call, unless she wanted to. She became affectionate in waves, too. Not the steady love we used to share. No, this was selective. Strategic. She'd go cold for days. Distracted. Busy. Too tired. Then suddenly smother me with kisses and jokes and, God, I missed you. At first, I took it as a good sign. Like we were pulling through something. Like the ebb meant there'd be a flow. But I get it now. She gave just enough warmth to keep me from freezing. There's this phrase that keeps circling my brain. Love bombing in reverse. Not the way people do it at the beginning to hook you in, but the way they use it to cover up guilt. To disguise the hollow spots. To distract you from the rot. Her laughter changed too. I don't even know when it happened, but I noticed it one evening while we were watching some dumb reality show on the couch. She barely smiled, barely reacted. But the night before, I'd heard her in the bedroom. Alone. Laughing into her phone with a joy I hadn't seen in months. When I asked who she was talking to, she said, just Amanda. You know how she gets after wine. But it wasn't Amanda. I know that now. The voice she used in those calls? It wasn't for me. It hadn't been for me in a long time. There were other moments, tiny fractures that didn't seem like much at the time. The way she never let me pick her up from her late-night shifts anymore. The last-minute trips to see a sick friend, who I later found out had been on vacation the same weekend. The way she stopped making our bed, even though she used to say it helped her feel together. Little things, little holes in the fabric. She stopped buying me snacks from the grocery store, not on purpose, she claimed. Just forgot. But you don't forget someone's favorite chips after 5 years of living together. You forget them when they stop feeling like part of your future. That's what I had become. Someone she was phasing out, like a subscription she forgot to cancel. I had chalked her distance up to burnout, work stress, seasonal blues. I even told her, if you're tired, lean on me. And she smiled, and kissed me on the forehead, and went to bed early. But she never leaned on me. She leaned away. And now, sitting here in this parking lot surrounded by strangers loading groceries into their trunks, I realize how much of that weight I carried alone. All the while thinking I was doing it with her. The surreal how betrayal doesn't come crashing through your front door. It doesn't kick down walls. It doesn't scream. It seeps. It leaks into your daily routines until you forget what dry feels like. I thought I was being paranoid. I really did. I questioned myself 100 times. But now every coincidence feels like choreography. Every missed dinner, every bad signal, every sudden mood swing. It wasn't chaos. It was calculation. A pattern I had been too trusting to see. She didn't just cheat on me. She rehearsed it. Like a role. Like a second life. And I applauded from the front row, clapping like a fool while she performed her way through excuses. The weirdest part? I'm not even angry. Not yet. I just feel stupid. Not for loving her. I'll never regret that. But for thinking love alone was enough. Back at home, I finally made myself go inside. The lights were still off. The air smelled like fabric softener and leftover takeout. I dropped my keys on the counter and stood in the middle of the kitchen, listening. Silence. I used to like this quiet. It meant she was home, resting, peaceful. But now it just feels like the echo after a punchline I missed. I wandered into the living room, sat down, looked around. Everything was still in place. The throw blanket she always kicked off. The half-burned candle she never blew out. Her favorite mug, clean and untouched. It's funny, the house hasn't changed at all. Not a single thing out of place. But I have. And now the stillness feels like a crime scene. There was no confrontation. No slammed doors. No shouting match. By the time Brooke got back from her weekend, I had already decided. I wasn't going to beg for honesty. I wasn't going to offer her the dignity of my outrage. She didn't deserve my anger. She deserved clarity, hers and mine. So I waited. She came home late Sunday evening, casually, like she was returning from a dentist appointment instead of a fabricated retreat. She didn't even seem flustered. Just tired. A little too cheerful. Said something about how the cabin had spotty reception, and it was so nice to unplug. She even brought me a mug. A novelty souvenir mug from the lake house she probably never even stayed in. It had a cartoon duck in sunglasses with the words Lake Life Vibes written in a curly font. She handed it to me like she was proud of herself. I took it, said thanks, set it on the kitchen counter. That was all. She went to bed early, said she had work in the morning, didn't kiss me goodnight. I waited until I heard her breathing shift, the telltale rhythm of sleep, and then I got up, quietly, like I'd done 100 times before on restless nights. But this time I wasn't going to the kitchen for water. I was going to her laptop. She'd left it open on the dining table, next to a stack of unread mail and her half-zipped work tote. She used the same password for everything, her mother's birthday, 0917. That hadn't changed, but everything else had. Her inbox was spotless, not organized, scrubbed. There were no unread emails, no flagged threads, no promotional junk piling up like usual. Just a pristine grid of polite, surface-level exchanges. Work updates, travel itineraries, booking confirmations. It didn't match the chaos of her real life. It was too curated. I opened her messaging app next. The recent chat list looked innocent enough. Coworkers, one cousin, a few girlfriends she occasionally brunches with. I clicked into them. No red flags, until I noticed something odd. No messages older than a month. Not even with her best friend, Sam, who she texted constantly. Everything before 30 days ago was wiped clean. At first, I assumed she had archived them. Maybe started fresh? But Brooke wasn't the declutter your digital life type. She kept everything. She had emails from 2015 flagged for later. So I did what any rational, suspicious man does when his instincts finally scream loud enough to wake him up. I opened the trash folder, and that's when I found it. Message after message, deleted but not yet purged. Hundreds of them. Not one or two stray texts, not an awkward exchange she regretted. A whole separate communication timeline, filtered out of her real life like an alternate universe. And one name showed up again and again. M. Just the letter. Sometimes M. Sometimes M winking face. Once just the emoji alone. But the tone? The tone was unmistakable. The first message I opened was dated 6 months ago. You looked dangerous in that coat today. I had to stop myself from kissing you in the parking lot. That was the night she told me she stayed late at work for a quarterly planning meeting. Another. Next time you say you're going to Target, I'm kidnapping you instead. Hotel's already booked. Same place. Same room. You know the one. I kept scrolling. My pulse was dead calm, which surprised me. No rage. No panic. Just detachment. Like I was reading about someone else's life. The messages were int asterisk mate casual. Laced with memories I hadn't lived through. They referenced songs they'd shared. Inside jokes I didn't recognize. Codes. Abbreviations. Once he called her V. I didn't understand what it meant at first. But the more I read, the more I realized they had names for each other. Nicknames they used to disguise themselves even in private. One of his read, V. You make me forget everything I'm supposed to be loyal to. She replied, then forget. I already have. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes. That was the moment it shifted for me. It wasn't the flirting. It wasn't even the lies. It was that line. I already have. It confirmed what I'd felt for months but hadn't wanted to admit. I hadn't lost my wife to some passing temptation. I'd lost her to someone she wanted more than she wanted me. Someone she'd chosen, again and again, every time she said late shift, or dead phone, or I just need time with my girls. The next thread was a calendar invite. Buried in her deleted events was a private booking at a boutique hotel about 20 minutes from our house. The reservation name? M. Jordan. Same day she told me she was visiting her cousin across town. I cross-referenced it with our bank statements. Sure enough, there was a charge from the same night, same area. Only it wasn't for a hotel room. It was for a spa package. Couples massage. The detail that gutted me? She'd once told me massages made her feel vulnerable. Said she didn't like being touched by strangers. I had never seen her book one in our entire relationship. There were photos, too. Nothing graphic. Just moments. A blurry image of a wine bottle in a hotel room. A selfie with a man's hand visible near her shoulder. Bracelet unfamiliar. Her face tilted in laughter. One of her feet kicked up in a bedsheet. Captioned, "Stayed longer than planned, grinning face with sweat." That one was time-stamped the same weekend she said she was helping a friend move. I started bookmarking the messages, the receipts, the **TS. I didn't know what I was going to do with them yet. But I knew I needed them. Not for revenge. Not even for legal leverage. I needed proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined all this. Because when someone gaslights you long enough, you start to doubt your own fingerprints on the doorknob. I kept going. The messages revealed their own chronology. At first, it was sporadic, once every week or two. Then more frequent. Daily. Morning check-ins. Lunchtime emojis. Goodnight videos. She sent him voice notes she never used with me. Called him her calm. Once, she sent him a song link titled Better Man. I clicked the link. It was a slow, acoustic love song about leaving someone safe for someone who made you feel alive. That was the dagger. Because once upon a time, I was the man who made her feel alive. Now, I was just the houseplant she forgot to water before she left. There was one last message that stopped me cold. It was from a few days before the brunch. Can't wait to be done with this chapter. I want to wake up next to you and not feel like a fugitive. One more weekend. Just have to make it look normal. I read that 3 times. One more weekend. That wasn't a getaway. That was a transition. She hadn't just stepped out on me. She'd stepped past me. Already living in a new life where I was nothing but an obstacle she was slowly erasing. And the brunch? That was her curtain call. The final scene. Not surprised by the envelope because she was expecting it. She didn't just cheat. She moved out emotionally 6 months ago. She was already gone. I just hadn't caught up. I closed the laptop and sat there in silence. The room didn't feel like mine anymore. Her scent was still on the hoodie hanging from the chair. Her water bottle sat on the windowsill half full. The candle on the coffee table was still burning. I didn't blow it out. I didn't touch anything. I just sat. And for the first time in months, I didn't wonder where she was or what she was doing. Because I finally knew. And knowing somehow hurt less than pretending. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. Just sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room. Laptop open beside me. Folder of digital proof saved to an encrypted drive. I kept staring at the walls like I expected them to crack and let the truth leak in. But the house stayed quiet. Still. As if it was holding its breath with me. By morning, my decision had crystallized. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me shattered. I was going to give her the mirror. So I printed everything. Emails, photos, **TS of texts, booking confirmations, a timeline of her deceit, laid out like a spreadsheet of someone else's life. I organized it into a black folder. Clean, unmarked, ordinary. I didn't write a note. I didn't sign my name. There was no need. The facts would speak louder than I ever could. She came home that afternoon, breezy, careless. Humming, actually. I think that's what stung most. That she still hummed. That she still had music in her. I was sitting at the dining table, the black folder in front of me. She froze when she saw it. "What's this?" Her voice barely wavered. Just the tiniest hitch in the middle, the kind you wouldn't notice if you weren't listening closely. But I was listening now. To everything. "I think you already know," I said. She didn't move. I didn't look away. Eventually, she walked forward, picked it up like it might be something delicate. A wedding photo, maybe. Or a relic. She opened it, flipped through the first few pages. I watched her eyes scan the evidence. Her expression didn't change. No gasp. No stammer. No tears. When she got to the **T of her message. "Can't wait to be done with this chapter." Her lips tightened almost imperceptibly, but still nothing. Finally, she closed the folder. And without a word, she turned and walked upstairs. No questions. No apologies. Not even denial. Not, "This isn't what it looks like." Not, "I can explain." She didn't try to fix it because, in her mind, it had already been dismantled. All she had to do now was gather what remained and leave. She packed that evening. No drama. No flurry. Just quiet, methodical movement. Drawer by drawer. Room by room. She wasn't in a panic. She wasn't thrown. She moved like she'd done it before. Like she'd practiced. I sat on the couch, still in the clothes I'd worn all day, watching the muted television. Some cooking show played in the background. Two strangers baking bread while my life dissolved in the hallway. She moved behind me once, suitcase wheels thumping softly over the rug. She didn't say a word, didn't ask for help. She didn't even look at me. In a strange way, I admired the efficiency, the precision. She left everything that carried weight. The framed photos, the souvenirs from trips she said were her favorite. Even the necklace I gave her on our 3rd anniversary, a small gold leaf charm she once claimed she'd never take off, lay abandoned on the bathroom counter. She took the essentials, clothes, toiletries, chargers, things not memories. And when she zipped the final suitcase, she stood for a moment in the doorway, not looking at me, just hovering there. She was holding her phone, scrolling. Still connected, just not to me. "You want to talk?" I asked, finally breaking the silence. She didn't look up. What would that change? There it was, the final sentence of a marriage. No apology, no excuses, just confirmation that she was already gone. Not physically, not yet, but in all the ways that matter. I thought I would feel something in that moment. Rage, sadness, relief, anything. But all I felt was hollow, like someone had scooped out the center of me and left the shell upright so it wouldn't collapse too soon. When she finally walked out the front door, she didn't slam it. She didn't cry. She just left, like a guest checking out of a hotel. Polite, detached, leaving behind rumpled sheets and a key that no longer fit anything. After the door clicked shut, I waited. I don't know what I was waiting for. A knock, a pause, a second thought. But nothing came. I stood up slowly, walked to the window, watched her load the trunk of her car with practiced ease. She didn't struggle, didn't hesitate. Then, and I'll never forget this, she got in, started the engine, and began humming again. Just a soft little tune, barely audible over the engine. She backed out of the driveway like she'd done 1,000 times. Only this time, she didn't glance up at the house, didn't look in the mirror. Just turned the wheel and disappeared down the street. That's when it hit me. She hadn't left a marriage. She'd completed a transaction. The house didn't feel different right away. Still smelled like her. Still held her fingerprints on the light switches, her shampoo in the shower. For a while, I kept expecting to hear her voice from another room, to catch her scent when I opened a closet. But that night, as I stood in the middle of our bedroom, my bedroom now, something shifted. I looked around. She hadn't taken her favorite candle, the one she always lit before bed, claiming it helped her sleep, still on the nightstand, and used. She hadn't taken the slippers I bought her last winter. She used to say they made her feel cozy and safe, left behind. She hadn't even taken the card I gave her last Valentine's Day, the one with the handwritten note, the one I'd spent an hour writing. I found it in the drawer, unread past the first page, folded neatly, like it had never meant anything. And that's when the numbness started to wear off. Not all at once. Just little aches in places I didn't realize were sore. Like my ribs when I breathed too deep. Or the knot at the back of my neck where I used to lean into her shoulder on movie nights. I walked through the house slowly, like I was touring the wreckage of something I used to live in. In the kitchen, I found her coffee mug. The one she always used, still on the drying rack, spotless. In the entryway, her extra umbrella, the one I bought her because she always lost hers, sat next to the door. She hadn't taken the things she loved. She'd taken the things she needed. And that's when I knew. She hadn't left in grief. She hadn't left with regret. She'd left with a plan. She wasn't sad. She was free. And me? I was just the story she'd finished telling herself. That night I didn't cry. I thought I might. I thought I'd break. But I didn't. I just stood in the doorway of the now empty guest room, looking at the imprints on the pillow where she used to rest her head, and wondered how long she'd been counting down to this moment. It wasn't about love anymore. It was about detachment. Clean lines. Division of space and silence. She didn't destroy our marriage with a wrecking ball. She dismantled it quietly, like a set she no longer needed, piece by piece, curtain by curtain. And when the final prop was packed and wheeled out the front door, she didn't look back. Because in her mind, the show had already ended. The first morning without her wasn't cinematic. No triumphant music. No deep breath of fresh air. No sense of freedom. Just silence. A quiet so dense it pressed in on me from every angle. I could hear the refrigerator hum like it was whispering secrets. The floor creaked under my feet as I walked through the house like an intruder in my own life. People say the end of a relationship brings closure. What they don't say is that sometimes closure is just chores. And that's how it started, the process of erasing her. I didn't plan it. I didn't make a list. I just opened the closet to grab a hoodie and saw her sweater draped over the hanger next to mine. Ivory, soft, stretched at the cuffs where she used to roll them over her thumbs. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it off the hanger and folded it. That's how it began. One by one, I started collecting her things. Not with anger. Not out of revenge. Just necessity. Her side of the closet. Empty, except for a pair of old shoes she hadn't worn in over a year. The scent of her perfume clung to the fabric like memory. I stuffed everything into cardboard boxes. Neat, methodical, efficient. The bathroom was next. Her shampoo, conditioner, a half-used razor. Lip balm tucked in the cabinet. A bottle of dry shampoo with her hair wrapped around the nozzle. It all went into a box marked bath. Her toothbrush sat in the holder beside mine. Blue, soft bristles worn from overuse. I didn't throw it away. I stared at it. Then I picked it up, looked at the curve of the handle, and placed it in a plastic bag before sealing the box. She hadn't packed in haste. She'd taken what she needed, left what didn't matter. But those things she left behind, they weren't just clutter. They were the evidence of a person who had outgrown the role she'd been playing and walked off set without a second thought. I moved to the bedroom drawers. In the bottom one, behind a pile of tangled jewelry, I found something I hadn't seen before. A small, velvet box. Inside was a necklace. Simple, gold, delicate, not flashy, not expensive. Just intentional. The kind of piece that means something when it's given quietly. Something worn close to the chest. Tucked beneath it was a folded piece of paper. I didn't open it at first. I just stared at the box in my palm, weighing whether I wanted to know more, if there was anything left that could still cut deeper. But curiosity is cruel. I unfolded the note. For every secret night, and the ones still to come. That was it. 10 words. I read them twice. Then again. She had kept it. Not in her purse. Not hidden away. But in our bedroom. In a drawer I once used to store Christmas cards and silly photos of us at the beach. She hadn't left it by accident. She had left it behind because it wasn't needed anymore. The necklace was never meant for me. The note was never meant to be found. But now I had both. And it didn't spark rage. It didn't even spark tears. It sparked confirmation. This hadn't been a single moment of betrayal. This was a pattern. A system. A full identity constructed behind my back. And now, in my hand, was the tangible proof. The souvenir of someone else's in *Macy. I placed the box into a folder I had started labeling simply evidence. Not for court. Not for friends. Not even for her. For me. For the moments when I would question myself later, wondering if I'd imagined how bad it was. If I'd exaggerated it. If I was the one who gave up too soon. The next few days blurred into the mechanics of removal. I cleared out the fridge. Tossed her almond milk. Her favorite granola. The bottle of rose she'd insisted we save for a special night. Which never came. I deleted the shared playlists on Spotify. removed her fingerprint from my phone, unlinked our calendar apps. The digital traces were harder than the physical ones. Not because of the effort, but because of the echoes. Every shared password felt like giving up a piece of something that once felt like a home. Every account I logged her out of felt like reassigning access to my own story. I walked around the apartment like I was cleaning up after a break-in. Except the thief had taken nothing and left everything behind. One afternoon, I walked past the laundry basket in the hallway and found a single sock of hers, tucked between two of my t-shirts. It was small, white, with a little red heart stitched into the side. She used to call them her comfort socks. Wore them on rainy days. Wore them when we watched bad movies under a blanket. Wore them when she cried and said, "I just don't want to lose us." I held it for longer than I should have. And then I dropped it in the trash. Not out of hate, out of survival. Because the longer you hold on to pieces of someone who's already left, the more you start to believe they might still come back. But she wasn't coming back. She hadn't left the door open. She hadn't even left a note. She'd exited clean, like smoke slipping under the crack of a door. There, then gone. The weirdest part? People started saying things like, "You must feel so free now." Or, "At least you know where you stand." I nodded, smiled, said the right things. But I didn't feel free. I felt buried. The apartment didn't feel like it belonged to me anymore. It felt like the aftermath of a story I didn't write. A theater after closing night. Programs still scattered on the floor. Lights dimmed. Costumes left on hangers. But no actors. No applause. Just the echo of what used to be a performance. One night, while cleaning under the bed, I found a pair of earplugs in a small case. The ones she used when I snored too loudly. I stared at them for a long moment. She used to roll over and laugh about it. Told me my snores sounded like a sleeping bear with a sinus infection. It was a joke, an inside thing. But here they were, hidden, like a tool, not a punchline. I added them to the pile. By the end of the week, I had filled 6 boxes. 4 labeled for storage, 2 for donation. Each box felt like a